your heart, I know, and it just needs time to grow. Now tell me who's making love to your old lady.
He was torn between knowing what's right, then knowing what's wrong, and doing the latter.
Okay, so I think the drugs, the late nights, the partying, had a big old effect on it.
Did you know that Johnnie Taylor, the famous soul singer, had a shocking secret he kept for years? I mean, from drug addictions to debts, and then there is the part of having multiple affairs with different women.
All of a sudden, you want to come forth and say, this is my father?
Well, when the truth finally came out, it caused a big scandal. Fans were surprised, and many couldn't believe what they heard. But why did he keep it a secret? What was he afraid of? Let's find out. Johnny's love for music started at a very young age. He grew up in the church, and by the time he was 6 years old, he was already singing in the choir. His voice was so good that the preacher would take him along whenever he traveled to preach. Johnny would sing before the sermons, and people loved his voice.
When you heard a Johnnie Taylor song, you didn't have to say, "Who's that?"
As he grew older, his confidence in his talent also grew. While other children worked in the cotton fields, Johnny refused to join them. He believed that his voice was his way out of poverty. He had a dream, and he was determined to follow it.
God gave him a good gift, and he knew how to use it.
After World War II, Kansas City was expanding. Many African-American families moved there in search of a better life. Among them was Johnnie Taylor, who moved to the city with his grandmother to join his mother. Life was changing, and Johnny was eager to make a name for himself in music. He joined a gospel group called the Melody Kings. Through this group, he met famous artists, including Sam Cooke, who became his mentor.
Darling, you send me.
Johnny admired Sam so much that he started to imitate him. He copied Sam's singing style, the way he walked, and even the way he talked. When Sam left the gospel group Highway QCs to join the Soul Stirrers, Johnny saw an opportunity. He left the Melody Kings and moved to Chicago, hoping to take Sam's place.
Led to him growing up faster than he obviously would have, because he was around adults a lot more and was on the road.
Johnny didn't get the lead role in the Highway QCs immediately, but he didn't let that stop him. While in Chicago, he met a doo-wop group called the Five Echoes. They needed a new singer because one of their members had been drafted into the U.S. Air Force. Johnny joined the group, and they recorded a song called "So Lonesome."
Are you lonesome? And do you want some?
The song became popular locally, and the group started performing in clubs and touring the Midwest. In 1954, they moved to a new record label and recorded more songs. One of them, "Tell Me Baby," was even written by Johnny himself. Unfortunately, the group didn't last long and soon broke up. By 1955, Johnny was finally ready to record with the Highway QCs. On May 22nd, he and the group recorded 4 songs. 3 of these songs had Johnny as the lead singer. His powerful voice stood out, and people started to recognize his talent. However, the songs did not become major hits. Despite this, Johnny continued working hard, hoping to find success in the music industry. Then, in 1956, his mentor, Sam Cooke, made a big announcement. He was leaving the Soul Stirrers to become a solo artist and make secular music. The Soul Stirrers needed a new lead singer, and many people believed Johnny was the perfect choice. At first, another singer, Johnny Jones, tried to replace Sam, but was not successful. So, in early 1958, a man named Leroy Kroom convinced Johnnie Taylor to join the Soul Stirrers. Many doubted if Johnny could fill Sam's shoes, but he quickly proved them wrong. He recorded a beautiful song called "The Love of God" with the group, and people loved his voice.
Until the end.
Just when things were looking good for Johnny, trouble came knocking. Spending time with Sam Cooke had introduced him to a different lifestyle. He was no longer just a gospel singer. He enjoyed the pleasures of the world, and this started affecting his career. In 1960, while driving, he accidentally hit a young girl who had run in front of his car. Sadly, she did not survive. Investigations proved it was an accident, but the police found out that Johnny had been using marijuana. This was a serious issue, and it marked the end of his time with the Soul Stirrers. Feeling lost, Johnny decided to become a preacher. He started calling himself Reverend Johnnie Taylor and traveled from church to church in Chicago. However, by 1961, he was back with the Soul Stirrers. But this did not last long. The group found out that Johnny had a girlfriend, and they decided to let him go for good. With nowhere else to turn, Johnny followed his friend Sam Cooke to Los Angeles. Life was hard for him, and he struggled to make ends meet. Sam advised him to stop singing gospel and switch to secular music. Around this time, Sam Cooke started his own record label, SAR Records. Johnny was one of the first artists signed to the label. His first song as a solo artist was A Whole Lot of Woman in 1961.
I need a whole lot of woman, yeah.
Other songs followed, including Rome Wasn't Built in a Day,
In your heart, I know, and it just needs time to grow.
in 1962, and Baby We've Got Love.
Now, if we get together and you smile when I hold you.
In 1963, he was starting to gain popularity, and his song even appeared on the Billboard charts. Switching to secular music gave Johnny the freedom to live the way he wanted. He enjoyed life without the guilt of disappointing the church. He also developed a love for money and started making extra income through illegal activities. He became a pimp, dressing in fancy clothes and driving expensive cars.
He was a pimp at one time, and he was a con artist at one time, and then became a pop singer.
His life was flashy, but everything changed when his mentor, Sam Cooke, was killed on December 11th, 1964. Sam's death was a shock to Johnny. He even thought about going back to being a preacher, but instead, he decided to keep singing. However, Sam's death caused SAR Records to shut down, leaving Johnny without a record label. With no label, no money, and no mentor, Johnny knew he had to find a way to survive. He researched how he could stand out in the music industry. During his search, he found something interesting. There was another singer named Little Johnnie Taylor who had just released a song called
I got to find me a part-time love.
Part-Time Love. The song became a hit, and many people confused the two singers. Johnny saw this as an opportunity. He decided to use his full name, Johnnie Taylor, to avoid confusion and to make his own name in the industry. This decision worked in his favor. In 1966, he signed with Stax Records, one of the biggest labels in soul music. His first hit with Stax was Somebody's Sleeping in My Bed.
You're sleeping in my bed.
He followed this with more hit songs, including Who's Making Love in 1968. This song became his first major hit, reaching #1 on the R&B charts and even making it to the pop charts. It sold over 1 million copies and earned him a gold record. Johnny was now a star. Throughout the 1970s, he continued releasing hit songs. He became known as the Philosopher of Soul because of his deep and meaningful lyrics. Songs like Jody's Got Your Girl and Gone,
Jody's got the gal and gone.
and Cheaper to Keep Her were big hits.
Keep her. It's cheaper to keep her.
However, when Stax Records shut down in the mid-1970s, Johnny had to find another label. He signed with Columbia Records and continued his success with songs like Disco Lady, which became his biggest hit in 1976. It was the first song ever to be certified platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America, RIAA. Johnnie Taylor was a famous singer known for his smooth voice and catchy songs. In 1976, he had a huge hit with Disco Lady.
Shake it up, shake it down, move it in, move it around.
The song was a big success, selling millions of copies and making him a star. People loved the beat and the way he sang, and it became the first single to go platinum. Everyone expected him to keep making hit songs, but things didn't go as planned. After Disco Lady, Taylor had trouble staying on top. The music world was changing, and new styles were becoming popular. Disco was still big for a while, but soon people started moving towards other sounds like funk, rock, and pop. Taylor tried to keep up, but he couldn't find the same success. Even though he kept making music, his songs didn't reach the top of the charts like before. One reason some people talked about Taylor's music was because of the lyrics in his songs. Some of his songs had words and themes that some listeners thought were too bold or controversial. Disco Lady itself had lyrics that made some people uncomfortable. At that time, some groups believed music should be clean and family-friendly. Because of this, Taylor's music caused debates. Some people loved his style, while others thought it was too much. As time went on, Taylor's popularity kept dropping. In the late 1970s and 1980s, the music industry changed again. Younger artists were bringing fresh sounds, and record labels focused on new stars. Taylor found it harder to get attention in a world that was moving forward fast. Critics said he didn't change his style enough to stay relevant. Others felt he just wasn't getting the support he needed.
If you got millions of dollars, that's when your true character comes out.
His temper could be bad. He'd fire a band in a minute.
He rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Behind the success, he lived a wild and fast life. He was caught up in the party scene of the 1970s, where drugs, alcohol, and women were a big part of his world. He struggled with addiction for many years, and even when he tried to break free, it was not easy. His children remember how his lifestyle took a toll on his health, but they also say he remained the same cool and charismatic man they knew. Taylor battled addiction to cocaine and alcohol for years. In the 1980s, he spoke publicly about his struggles to help others understand the dangers of drugs. He even supported Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign, hoping to spread awareness.
Say yes to your life. And when it comes to drugs and alcohol, just say no.
But, as his children later revealed, he was not always able to follow that message himself. His partying and drug use did not stop completely. His body suffered from years of wear and tear, and his heart was not strong. The late nights and heavy drinking made things worse, and his health declined over time. His son recalled that Taylor often stayed awake for days, lost in his world of music, parties, and addiction.
He drank, he did drugs, he lived hard, he lived fast.
Sometimes his children would tell him to rest, but he just kept going. Addiction was something that changed over the years for him. In the 1960s and 1970s, he struggled with one kind of addiction, and in the 1990s, it was something else. His son once joked with him about smoking in the house, but Taylor would brush it off in his usual charming way. While he seemed to have moments of control over his addiction, it always found its way back into his life. Despite his struggles, Taylor remained the same in many ways. His son said that his father's personality never really changed. He was always the confident and charismatic man people loved. Even if addiction affected him, it was not always easy to see. But in the end, his lifestyle may have been what took him away too soon. His son felt a deep sadness about losing his father, especially since he was just beginning to truly know him.
He was a pimp at one time, and he was a con artist at one time, and then became a pop singer.
Along with his music and fame, Taylor was also surrounded by women. His charm and talent made him a magnet for them. From the 1950s through the 1970s, he had 6 children with 4 different women. His son remembered how women would do almost anything to be near him. Taylor did not have to chase them. They came to him. His life was always filled with women, and that never changed. Taylor also gave his son advice about life, including the dangers that came with fame. He knew the pitfalls of being in the spotlight, and he shared his experiences. But in the end, his choices shaped his life.
A lot of bad habits will cause you to leave this earth faster than you should leave it.
When famous singer Johnnie Taylor passed away, his family faced a big problem. He did not leave a will, which meant his money and property had to be divided according to the law.
6.
Johnnie Taylor died without a will, and as such, there was no way for him to designate who would administer his estate at his death.
He had 6 children who were known to the public, but after his death, more people came forward, saying they were also his children. This created a lot of confusion and legal battles over who should get part of his estate. Johnnie's estate was worth around $1.3 million. His Dallas mansion alone was valued at over $1 million. Without a will, his known children would get an equal share. Each child expected to receive over $200,000. But before this could happen, a woman named Fonda Bryant. She claimed to be Johnnie Taylor's daughter and wanted her rightful share.
He was like 21 when he met my mother. So yeah, I give him a little bit of degree of being young and dumb.
Fonda said her mother had told her for years that Johnnie Taylor was her father. After his death, she decided it was time to make it official. She filed a legal petition to be recognized as his daughter. This caused a lot of tension because Taylor's 6 known children were not ready to accept her claim. They believed only they should inherit their father's wealth. The situation became even more dramatic when Fonda was not the only new child to come forward. Another man, Tyrone T.J. Hooker, also claimed to be Johnnie Taylor's son. The legal battle was not just about money. It was about recognition. Fonda wanted to be acknowledged as Taylor's daughter, not just for financial reasons, but also for her identity. She hired a lawyer named Mark McCraw, who believed in her story and decided to help her fight for her rights. He filed a petition on her behalf, asking the court to officially declare her as Johnnie Taylor's child. This legal case brought a lot of media attention, making it even harder for the family to keep things private.
All of a sudden, you want to come forth and say, "This is my father"?
As the case went on, the situation became more complicated. Johnnie Taylor had received royalty payments from Sony Music for his songs. Fonda and the other heirs wanted to know how much money was involved, but Sony refused to share financial details. They believed that only official heirs had the right to see those records. Since there was no will, the family had to trust Sony's payments. But some felt that the company was not being transparent. A lawyer explained that it is very expensive to do an audit on a record label's finances. This made it difficult for Fonda and the others to check if they were getting all the money they deserved. Without proper records, they were left in the dark about how much Taylor's music was really worth. Johnnie Taylor's death left his family with more questions than answers. If he had written a will, things would have been much easier. Instead, his children were forced into long legal fights, unsure if they would ever receive the inheritance they expected. In the end, his legacy was not just about music, it was also about the complicated family he left behind.
Fortunately, the majority of the estate went to payment of creditors, including the IRS.
When Johnnie Taylor died, he was in big debt. He owed the IRS $100,000 in back taxes. His estate was worth $1.3 million, but with every delay, more fines, interest, and legal fees were added. This made the debt even worse. His family wanted to act fast before the debt took away everything. Geraldine and Sabrina wanted to take control of Johnnie's estate. They asked the court to let them sell his Dallas mansion, which was worth a lot of money. They believed this would stop the debt from eating away their inheritance. But Fonda did not trust them. She thought Geraldine only cared about herself and her children. Fonda believed that Geraldine didn't care if the rest of the family got anything or not.
When we got finished, we got a check for like $2,000. something dollars from the sale of the house and everything. That was it.
Mark McCraw, a lawyer, stepped in and blocked Geraldine and Sabrina from becoming administrators of the estate. Instead, a judge named Nikki DeShazo appointed a neutral attorney, Linda Weiland, to handle everything. This was because Johnnie Taylor died without a will. Since he never wrote down who should manage his estate, his ex-wife and daughter both wanted control. But they could not agree. The judge decided that someone unrelated to the family should take over. The judge also made another important decision. She ordered that nothing should be done with Johnny's estate until Fonda, TJ, and Chiffon proved whether they were legally Taylor's heirs or not. His house could not be sold until this issue was settled. Johnnie Taylor was a singer who had a long and interesting career in the music industry. He changed record labels many times, moving from one company to another. These moves were not just about finding better deals, but also about facing struggles in the industry. Sometimes disagreements or problems with a record company would push him to leave and sign with another. Taylor was first with SAR Records, then moved to Stax, where he found great success. But when Stax faced financial troubles, he had to look for a new label. He later signed with Columbia, hoping to continue his career smoothly. After some time, he moved again, this time to Beverly Glen, a small independent label in Los Angeles. His time there was short, and he soon found a new home at Malaco Records. Malaco Records signed Taylor in 1984 after the company's founder, Tommy Couch, and his partner, Wolf Stevenson, heard him sing at a funeral. He was performing at the funeral of blues singer Z.Z. Hill, and they were so impressed with his voice that they offered him a deal. Malaco turned out to be a great match for Taylor. He had the freedom to record the kind of music he loved, just like he had at Stax in the 1960s and 1970s. Taylor worked with some of the best musicians at Malaco. He recorded with the Muscle Shoals Rhythm Section and talented in-house artists, including keyboardist Carson Whitsitt and guitarist Bernard Jenkins. With their support, he made 10 albums over 16 years. This was one of the longest and most stable periods of his career. One of his biggest successes came in 1996 with his album, Good Love. It became the #1 album on the Billboard Blues chart and was also a big hit on the R&B chart. It was Malaco's best-selling record ever. Because of this success, Malaco decided to record a live performance of Taylor. In the summer of 1997, they filmed a concert at the Longhorn Ballroom in Dallas, Texas. Some parts of the video were also filmed at 1001 nightclub in Jackson, Mississippi. Taylor had a special way of singing that connected with people. He was called the Philosopher of Soul because his songs had deep meaning. He could sing different styles of music, from blues to gospel to R&B. His final song, Soul Heaven, was about a dream where he saw great musicians from the past, including Louis Armstrong, Otis Redding, and the notorious B.I.G. It was a powerful song that showed his love and respect for music legends. In the 1980s, Taylor also worked as a radio DJ in Dallas. He played R&B and soul oldies on KKDA, a local station. Many of the station's DJs were musicians like him, which made it a special place for soul and blues fans. People loved listening to his voice on the radio just as much as they loved his songs. Johnnie Taylor passed away on May 31st, 2000, at the age of 66. He had a heart attack and died in Dallas, Texas. He was laid to rest beside his mother in Kansas City, Missouri. Though he is gone, his music lives on. Taylor was a true survivor in the music world. He never gave up, even when things got tough. He kept singing, changing, and growing, leaving behind a legacy that will never be forgotten. Johnnie Taylor would forever be acknowledged as a powerful singer. His voice had deep emotion, and his songs touched many people. He sang soul, blues, and gospel, making him loved by many fans. His music made people feel joy, pain, and love. His biggest hit, Disco Lady, made history. But he had many other great songs. His music spoke about real-life problems, relationships, and struggles. Many singers were inspired by him. Even after he passed away, his music still lives on. People still listen to his songs, and new artists learn from his style. His influence will never be forgotten.